Hi there, welcome to the second 10-minute moan of today. The topic of this 10-minute moan is a rather unusual story where man Russell Findlay, who wishes to be the Scottish Tory leader after Douglas Ross has stepped down, is very unclear in what he's actually said about Scottish independence. And he says Scottish Tories should stop battling independence. It's a bit of a weird thing to say for a guy who is trying to be leader of the Scottish Conservative and Unionist Party. However, the story I'm going to use for resource is in the Telegraph by Simon Johnson, the Scottish political editor. And it's quite a worrying article because he's actually not very clear and could be taken either of two ways, what he's actually saying here. And when you consider the way that Scottish Unionists like myself have been treated by political parties over the last decade or so, we really need somebody that we can have hope in. And when you've got someone attempting to be the leader of Scottish Conservative and Unionist Party, not being really clear about what he's saying on the topic of independence, it can be nothing but worrying for Scottish Unionists. And it confirms my belief that there's not a current party out there as a automatic safe home for any Unionists in Scotland. And I say that because the Tories should be, but nobody really votes for them in great numbers up here. And Reform could have been if it wasn't for their shambolic Westminster election where they had at least 4 candidates who were clear nationalists while representing a party who are supposedly staunch Unionists. And indeed their second in command in Scotland, who'd been with the party for a number of years, as recently in January was posting videos on his own Facebook where he declared he would vote for independence again if he had a chance at any future referendums, and was advocating a Scottish referendum in 15 years from now. So Scottish Unionists don't have a natural home because they feel let down by almost every party out there. And it's been a horrific place to live in Scotland as a Scottish Unionist over the last decade. So when I hear a guy want to represent Scottish Unionists and being unclear what he's actually saying about the future of the Union, because believe me, if Scotland becomes independent, there is no Union, can leave me and many Unionists like me nothing but concerned. So this story, where the headline is Scottish Tories should stop battling independence, says first candidate in party leadership contest. Russell Findlay vows to refocus the party's efforts and lead a patriotic conservative movement that stands for aspiration and ambition. Now that headline alone leaves you scratching your head, because if they're going to stop battling independence, are they actually encouraging it? Well, I don't know when I read that headline, because it could mean two things. But let me read the story out and let's open it for debate. Russell Findlay has pledged to switch the Scottish Tories' focus away from battling against independence, as he became the first MSP to confirm he is standing for party leadership. The Scottish Shadow Justice Secretary argued the Holyrood Conservatives must move away from their main electoral message over the past decade of stopping the SNP getting another independence referendum. That concerns me somewhat, because that should be your first. While they're chatting about it, you should be defending it. Speaking after the SNP was routed in the general election, he said the Scottish Tories should switch to providing a positive conservative vision that appeals to the interests, hopes and needs of ordinary people, the length and breadth of Scotland. He said this would involve providing voters with tangible, practical and pragmatic ideas and solutions that will change everyday lives for the better. Under his leadership, Mr Findlay said the Scottish Tories would offer voters a different option at the 2026 election, as he pledged to break the stifling left-wing consensus. Now, that's fair enough. I understand why you want to break the left-wing consensus. But if you're doing what I've done a video earlier on today, I'll put a link to it at the end of this video, where we had an ex-SNP MP telling us that they should aim to try and get Unionists to vote for the SNP, which is outrageously bonkers, right? Is this the Tories trying to attract nationalists to their party? I don't know, because it's a bit unclear what they're saying. However, Under his leadership, Mr Findlay said the Scottish Tories would offer voters a different option. His declaration that he was standing for the leadership has been widely expected for weeks. He is viewed as the party establishment's favoured candidate to succeed Douglas Ross, who quit during the general election. Mr Findlay, 51, is a former investigative journalist who specialised in exposing exposing the actions of organised crime gangs. He was targeted in an acid attack on the doorsteps of his home in Glasgow days before Christmas 2015. The hitman, a career criminal, once acquitted of murder, was detained at the scene and jailed. After making a recovery, he joined the Scottish Tories team at Holyrood in 2020 to become Mr Ross's chief spin doctor. He then won election the following year as a West Scotland MSP. Mr Findlay became one of the few MSPs who was part of Mr Ross's inner circle amid widespread complaints from others that the leader did not take advice. His performances in Holyrood Chamber attacking the SNP's soft-touch justice policies have won him widespread praise. However, some Tory MSPs have concerns about his lack of experience outside his comfort zone of crime. Announcing his candidacy with the slogan Leadership for Change, Mr Findlay said, "The next Scottish Parliament election is 2026 will be a defining moment which sets Scotland on a new course. Change is coming in Scotland. I want us to lead it and to do us proud and passionate Conservatives. We must refocus our efforts from predominantly battling against independence to instead leading a patriotic Conservative movement that stands for aspiration and ambition." Now, there's a few things in there that I quite agree with. Change is coming in Scotland, and Holyrood needs to be reinvented. Holyrood needs to be a place where people do not talk about independence every day, blame Westminster, Brexit, Tories and or Labour, because that's what we've done for 17 years. That's what we've done since at least the referendum in 2014 when the SNP didn't get their way. So I quite agree with changes coming in Scotland. I feel that myself, obviously, after the election results that we just seen for Westminster, that was an election for change. And I see this being the same. But, and although it depends on what he means, and I can't believe there's a grey area here. Reading this article, you just don't know. Does he mean Scotland? We should just stop talking about independence, because I quite get that notion. But that's not clear by what he's saying here. It could be what he's saying is we're going to stop fighting it. And I find that completely mind-blowing. This prospect of another independence referendum being held in the foreseeable future appears to have all but vanished after the SNP held only 9 seats in this month's election, down from the 48 they won in 2019 contest. Mr Findlay added, "I hear regularly that politicians are all the same. I believe the Scottish Conservative and Unionist Party under my leadership can be different. I'm standing as a candidate for the leadership of the Scottish Conservative and Unionist Party because I believe we have a chance to change Scotland for the better. I want to appeal to anyone who is fed up with the stifling left-wing consensus at Holyrood to join me as we build a positive, modern Conservative movement that Scotland needs." Mr Findlay's candidacy was endorsed by 3 shadow cabinet members at Holyrood: Rachel Hamilton, the Shadow Rural Affairs Secretary, Douglas Lumsden, the Shadow Net Zero Secretary, and Miles Briggs, the Shadow Social Security Secretary. So there we have it. And I cannot convey enough to non-Unionists or non-Scottish Unionist people that watch these videos how horrific it's been to live in Scotland for the last decade plus as a Unionist, where you become called a traitor, a bootlicker, someone who bows to Westminster, all this stuff, when I'm actually quite happy to be Scottish within a union. But I'm Scottish, not a traitor. And I get told sometimes doing these videos that I must hate Scotland because I say bad things about the SNP. Well, let me assure you folks, if I did not care for Scotland, I would not be so determined to rid Scotland of the SNP. It's my pride in Scotland that drives me to make Scotland a better place. And I hope and I share the beliefs with Russell Findlay that we can make 2026 a year of change in Holyrood. And we can get rid of people, not just one particular party, but get rid of people who just want to showboat, fan dance, and try and keep a hold of their seat for another 5 years term to give them another 300 and, what would that be? £350,000 worth of wages during the term of a parliament. And really, who just get interested in their constituents when the votes come out about again 5 years later. I want to fill it with people who want to do what's best for Scotland. And although they have to be, if they are party led, they have to be loyal to the policy documents that people voted on and the manifestos provided by their party. When we get in to make some big boy decisions, they can put their hand in their hat and say they've done what's best for Scotland. Because I don't believe we've seen that in Holyrood for many a year, if ever. And that's the Scottish Parliament I want in 2026. And I've already declared that I'll be standing for election during that campaign period. And I look forward to it starting. Because the place is full of people who want to be there for no other reason than fill their pockets. There are high wages and inflated wages over what they could probably achieve anywhere else in society, and access to an almost unlimited expenses budget. And they don't do things that are best for Scotland, they do things that are best for their party, and sometimes just for them. And I want to have a place where people can go to work, we can get 130 MSPs in the building that do as I would plan to do, and write in the sun visor in my car, remember you are representing them as a servant that I would see every day before I went to my work. Because that is the truth of the matter. That's what you do, as an else should be doing as an MSP. But it does worry me that yet again, Scottish Unionists are left scratching their head and feeling a bit homeless when you hear this man be a wee bit grey in what he actually means when he says Scottish Tories should stop battling independence. That gives me the fear that a man wishing to represent the Scottish Conservative and Unionist Party is so unclear in what he's saying to the Scottish nation in such a particularly emotional part of politics. Please clear it up. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you've not already done so, please consider subscribing and hitting the notifications button. But most importantly of all, unless you're SNP, they're ever decreasing cult members. Everyone else have a great day. Cheery bye now.